Spreading agile wings, Uriel soared through the air in a blaze of white and gold light, swifter than a jet, yet smooth as honey. As he flew, he showered the earth with kindness and compassion. Gabriel raised his eyes and his arms and hovered gracefully, shining bright with pure love from within. Michael, protector of the light, drew his sword and stood gallant, bathed in God's glory, inspiring boundless strength and courage. Glowing warmer and warmer, Raphael spiraled on the spot, spreading waves of healing throughout the ether. Azrael knelt calm as the storm surged around him, emanating the peace of the divine. Metatron looked down from space, wise beyond words in his silent orbit, empowering Earth and all its beings with hope. The cherub in heaven awakened gently and peacefully, in pure bliss and gratitude. He was perfectly cozy in his warm satin blankets as serene string music started ever so softly, slowly swelling with every yawn into wakefulness. Soothing light emerged from the restful darkness surrounding him, easy on his tender waking eyes. His consciousness was boundless levity, floating in the fading dream state. Like a feather it fell, down, down, until he became pleasantly aware of a few fingers and toes and gave them a wiggle and blinked his eyes as all the possible joys to look forward to in the coming day drifted before his mind. He imagined the bright morning rays of the sun shining on the sweet-scented flowers in his garden and the bees and the butterflies dancing all around. This is heaven, were his first words, and hearing their babe awake, the angels glid gracefully into his room and raised him from his crib in their warm arms. He smiled up, and they smiled down, and they rocked and swayed as one. A gentle morning breeze flowed in, lifted his sheets and laid them back down in perfect order, a sight to be cherished once it came time again for sleep. But now it was a dawning day, a new beginning. Refreshed by the breeze, the cherub breathed in deeply and dove from their arms into his cool, crystal clear bath, cleansing in the embrace of the angel of water, and emerging pure, reborn anew. And just when I thought life was slowing down, I realized it is, in fact, moving faster. And when I thought things couldn't be more perfect they become indeed. This is heaven after all. And the cherub opened his own baby wings and jumped and bounced and flipped and twirled. No time for that now, dear son. Your chariot awaits. Pulled by two winged horses and announced by the toll of its bells, the cherub's chariot flew into view. With a smile of delight, he stepped aboard, in awe at the shining silver veils, sky blue curtains, and comfortable indigo seats inside. He watched the world and the heavens pass by in wide-eyed rapture out his window, captivated by the flecked panorama of wispy clouds, the misty mountain ranges, the gushing waterfalls, the endless oceans. He saw bears crawling, penguins marching, deer prancing, dolphins dancing. He heard roosters crowing, horses neighing, whales calling, lions roaring. He breathed in the jungle's rich, earthy, woody tones and the salty spray of the sea. He felt the blazing heat exude from the desert sand and the polar ice caps chill. Such was his sensory experience, but the cherub was protected, a witness to it all, truly a child of God. And when the waves of weariness washed over him and he found his eyelids closing, his seat became a bed, the curtains were drawn shut, and the lights dimmed for his nap on the return journey. The cherub opened his eyes from a sweet dream of sky-spanning rainbows to a real one out his very window. The chariot slowed in descent, and the horses landed and trotted along the shore of Angel's Lake, delivering their noble consignment to a most gratefully awaiting mother and father. Sitting on a blanket, laid out with fruits and fish and nuts and sweets, a feast as colourful as the arc on the horizon. His tummy rumbled pleasantly at the sight before him, and he took his place between his holy parents. Together they joined hands, gave thanks to the angel of nourishment, and set aside an offering. The afternoon was spent in laughter as they shared stories and made up games on the grass and the sand and even in the cool lake, and between times enjoyed all the ripe sustenance that whet their appetites. The angel of sun opened their cells to the full vitality of the light, and the angel of wind whispered words of inspiration to their ready ears and cooled them with her fresh breath. The animal guides of the garden played along too. The brave lion, the noble falcon, the lucky turtle, the wise owl, the fertile bull, the industrious ant, the loving swan, the wily monkey, the cunning fox, the successful dragonfly, the perceptive millipede, the peaceful dove, the playful otter, the determined beaver, even the lone wolf. Trees shimmered in the gentle breeze, dropping fragrant flowers of pink and blue around them, and the nightingales and robins chorused and hummingbirds pecked and flitted. Even the sea life watched on, flying fish jumping in celebration and seals and frogs sunning themselves together on the shore. Fluffy white clouds drifted peacefully across the blue sky all afternoon. They could sense the calm wisdom and consummate harmony of the angel of nature all around. As they swam in the lake, they noticed the angel of fire visit their picnic spot and set alight some twigs. By the time they emerged, it was a roaring blaze to dry them and purify the air, and they gratefully snuggled in close to the satisfying crackle and the fruity, nutty, buttery flavour of golden brown toasted marshmallows. In the dancing flames, her fleeting visage appeared with a wink. And when at last the sun dipped low in the sky and painted the lake in pastel tones of pink and orange and gold, they folded the blanket and strolled silently hand in hand along the sand. The birds hushed their songs, even the breeze held its breath. And at the moment the golden orb touched the horizon, the angels took flight. Not just mother, father and cherub, but angels all over heaven and earth, straight up, twirling, soaring above the clouds, and they looked down over it all with twinkling eyes. And as the last glorious beams crossed the lands and seas, and the mighty sun sunk into its bedchamber, supernal strains of music resounded in the air. Melody flowing from her fingers as she caressed her celestial harp, the angel of music floated by on her cloud. "This is heaven! This is heaven!" cheered the cherub, and the angels broke into song. "Hold him in your light, dear Lord, hold him there indeed. There he is at peace, dear Lord, there he is indeed." And the golden glow held the cherub like a womb, weightless, wrapped in love, and slowly faded to twilight as he smiled, and all the while the angels lit fragrant candles and laid them on the clouds, flickering down from the night sky as the stars that appears from earth. A trail of light followed the angel of the moon as she left an ephemeral silhouette against the waxing crescent. And when the cherub's eyes grew heavy and he gave a tired yawn, they hushed and tucked him into his white blanket in his bed on the clouds and whispered in lullaby, "Hold him in your light, dear Lord, hold him there indeed. There he is at peace, dear Lord, there he is indeed. Thank you for this day, dear Lord, for all that came to be. Bless this night to come, dear Lord. In dreams may he fly free." And without another wiggle of his tiny toes, the cherub succumbed to the loving embrace of the angel of sleep. And the angel stepped silently across the clouds to look down upon the earth in all its beauty of blue, brown and green. It was time for their last task of the day. Spreading their wings for the final time, they spun majestically into the air, sending down a shower of plumes for their proteges to find tomorrow for inspiration and guidance. The feathers floated in the breeze and danced and crossed and weaved, but by morning had landed exactly where they needed to be. Overnight, the angels swooped down to collect bottles floating in the seas with sealed messages and prayers and shared them amongst themselves. They gathered letters in the postbox addressed to them from familiar proteges or from new solicitors of grace. And they read every diary entry where their names had been invoked, in messages of gratitude or entreaty. and responded with gratitude of their own, bestowing warm reassurance, answering their requests, and soothing roughened edges of their souls. They would fly down and enter human dreams by night, or spark a thought in a friend's mind that they felt they just had to pass on, or invisibly wrap their protective cloaks around them when they were afraid, or flicker a light just to show they were there. Even as simple as a good feeling, a smile in the mirror, the angel hidden behind their very own eyes. And as they worked with joy and cherished every opportunity, God watched over it all. God created the angels to guide and protect the beings on earth and smiled lovingly that they may find such pride and fulfillment in their destiny. And the angels looked admiringly down at the beings on earth, for they worked tirelessly too. Amidst so much pain, suffering and hardship, they found the strength and courage to overcome their challenges. And despite being blinkered to the blessings above, they kept faith and held their heads high. And there was the full spectrum of creativity spread throughout humanity. Each granted their colour from the vibrant paint shop of God, and paint they did, and write and create. The angels couldn't help but share their own joy in creativity. They whispered verses in the ears of poets first thing as they awoke, whistled tunes of heavenly beauty from behind the trees as composers strolled by, or took hold of the hands of writers and led their pens across the page. They even laid out clues to scientists and mathematicians for the missing piece of a formula, and they listened in turn with deep joy to the polished poems, the majestic symphonies, the intricate narratives, and the elegant equations. In his mud brick home in the quiet Indian village of Sagar, 13-year-old Marvin knelt on the dirt floor staring into the flames of the open fireplace, his cheeks glowing with dried tears. It was the second night in a row his parents hadn't come back, and it seemed he'd be sleeping alone again. Worse and worse thoughts were coming to him now, images he couldn't push away, flashing in the flames. And he wondered if they were lost or hurt, or if they'd abandoned him, or if he would ever see them again. And he shivered, and with a wavering voice spoke out loud the first words since they'd left. "Please, someone, protect my mother and father and bring them home." There was a scratching at the door. Marvin froze, but felt numb to fear. A minute passed in complete stillness. Sensing a presence waiting on the threshold, he got up and opened the door, and a dog walked straight in. And still Marvin felt at peace. Seeming hardly to notice his host, the dog curled up by the fire as if it were his own home, nestled snout to tail, and fell sound asleep. After a curious, silent minute just watching the dog's belly rise and fall with its breath, Marvin felt the caress of the first wave of exhaustion as his thoughts began to slow. So he just curled up next to the dog until the blanket of sleep descended. The next thing he knew, Marvin opened his eyes at first light from a deeply restful, dreamless sleep with a new clarity, hope, and energy. The dog, sensing his awakening, unfurled itself and yawned and stretched, then padded to the door with an expectant look at Marvin. Pausing only to let his body catch up to his mind, he jumped to his feet and pulled open the door, and the dog trotted patiently out onto the street. Without a second thought, Marvin followed. They passed merchants in woolly coats and beanies, rolling up their shutters and unloading their carts, laying out roti canai, pumping bellows, lighting clay ovens and gas hot plates, and pouring mustard oil to sizzle. They passed housewives who rose with the birds, short but nimble, sweeping away the night's leaf litter with grass reed brooms. And all the while, the dog walked unhurriedly on, turning his head and observing it all, but not stopping. He had a sense of direction. And some of the older ladies stopped to watch the pair pass by, boy led by stray dog. And soon they were approaching the village border. The homes were more spread out. And Marvin followed the dog into the barren expanse beneath the rising sun. It was only 10 minutes later, less than a mile out of town, just out of sight of the last estate, that the dog stopped, turned to Marvin, and before his eyes became an angel. Tall, yet ethereal, the genderless, winged figure looked down at Marvin expectantly, just as the dog had, until finally it said, "You are your own guide from here. Your heart knows the way. Follow it, and you will find what you're looking for." It then shrunk to a tiny lizard and eyed him one last time before scurrying off into the desert. And that's when Marvin realized every animal was an angel, and every human was too. He was alone, but never had felt so secure. He looked all around and saw in the landscape not hostile danger, but abundant support. Guided by a gut feeling, he walked on.